Alright, hello YouTube. Today I've got a little comparison video. And as you can tell, it is with the Game Boy and another system. So what is that other system, you ask? Well, Nintendo had a couple competitors with the Nintendo Game Boy. Two of the most well known, I believe, are the Sega Game Gear and Atari Lynx. And I'll be comparing the lesser known of those two. And that would have to be this machine right here. As you can see, its shadow. And if you cannot already see the two Atari logos on there, then you probably have no idea what I'm about to show you. If you cannot see that and that, then you really are blind. But that is an Atari Lynx Model 2. It came out in 1991, same year as this machine. Sega Game Gear, but we're not comparing that one. We're comparing these two. Nintendo's first competitor in the handheld market with the Game Boy. So, way back in 1989 with the Lynx Model 1 and the original Game Boy here, Atari was like looking at these things, and side by side comparison, not only would you notice a pretty sizable difference, even though these were probably tethered down, I'm not entirely sure. Hardware speaking, the Lynx had a lot going for it. It had full color, 16-bit graphics with a backlight. The Game Boy had black and green, non-backlit, 8-bit screen. Well, if you look at it that way, Atari could have won. But they were not looking at it that way. They were looking at the games. Yes, gamers like games. Isn't that a novel? And you know what? If the games on the system aren't worth playing, then the system is not worth owning. So, the two systems launched in 1989. The Lynx was only out in San Francisco and New York by Christmas. This was out everywhere, from Alaska to Florida and from Maine to Utah, or places like that. It was everywhere. It was also available in Japan as well. It was not available in Europe yet. It would come out later the next year, about a year after the American launch. And Lynx, it was San Francisco and New York City, but there's a lot of people live in New York City and San Francisco, but it's not enough to get the sales that the Game Boy got for Christmas, because everyone loves Nintendo stuff. I mean, they love Mario, they love stuff like that, but it was all available. So, yeah. And of course, the Lynx and the Game Boy were also packaged with a free game. Oh wow. Here are the two free games. For the Lynx, California Games. For the Game Boy, Tetris. Now, the Game Boy could have gone down a much different route. It could have been bundled with Super Mario Land, but it wasn't. It was bundled with Tetris. So then, everyone and their mom wanted one of these things so they could play the hit, rad new game, Tetris. Of course, everyone and their mom does not play California Games, so not as well known as Tetris. Comparing the two cartridges side by side. Actually, there are three forms of Lynx cartridge before I get into comparing them. We'll put them in order. First cartridge style was this, which I have only one, Electro Cop. These came out with the original Lynx Model 1. Now, the original Model 1, you could put cartridges in on the side, shove them in, and they're really hard to get out. On the Lynx Model 2, however, a lot easier to get out. But Atari was not making the Model 2 then, it was making the Model 1. So, they went from ability to stack quite easily. I don't have two form of flat ones, so I'll just use my original one. They went to ridged, so you couldn't stack these nearly as well, and that was the downfall of this cartridge. But it was still easier to get out of the Model 1. It's really easy to get out of the Model 2. So they went with this style, a little curved, and they stack quite well. A little uneven, but not too bad. Of course, the Game Boy's cartridge stayed the same forever, really. Only a few minor variations with the black cartridge in the end of the 90s with the Game Boy Color. The cartridge was finally changed with the Game Boy Color. You cannot play these on the Game Boy because of a little thing back here. Yes, and we'll get into that all in a minute. So yeah, cartridges are actually really the smallest thing on the Lynx. Quite thin. Now, we got over that stuff, the exterior stuff, let's also look at the layout. So here you've got a D-pad. It's a very nice, very good D-pad. Feels very good. This is a bit stiffer, but it's not a bad D-pad. For here, actually let's go to the Game Boys over here. You have your A, B buttons. And on Lynx you have your A, B buttons, as well as your A and B buttons, because you can play this thing left-handed or right-handed. That was a pretty cool little feature back in the day. It still is pretty cool because no other handheld's done that besides this. So the Lynx did innovate. Also, if you look here, there's the Game Boy's pretty good sized speaker. There's that. They're both mono speakers, so they're not too bad. Now, let's look at the system here on the side. You'll have your extension cable thing. Get that off. Good. Okay. Extension cable and volume. Cartridge slot. Your AC adapter and contrast. Can't really see that because my camera does not like focusing too fast. And your headphone jack. Now, up here, the Lynx, they're all in one nice, neat little area. Brightness, power, comm links. It's not something like this, which the Sega Game Gear also happens to have. This Lynx is the only main competitor that did not have one of these little plastic tidbits. They might have. Probably got lost though. Your headphones and volume, and also your cartridge slot. Now, at the time of these systems' release, what did you get power from? Because rechargeable batteries were not popular. Well, batteries. 4 AA's. On the Lynx, you use 6. That's a lot of battery. They last about 6 hours, unlike the Sega Game Gear's 6 AA's, 4 hours of battery life. These, however, lasted for 30 hours, depending on who you ask. They could last for like 15 to 30 hours. That's pretty cool. So, I know some of you are probably getting bored. You want to see these two things fight, but first I have to put some cartridges out. And I want you to honestly put in the comments how many of you know what half of these games for the Lynx are, and how many of you honestly have no idea what any of the games for the Lynx are. So there they are. Let my camera focus for a second. Pinball Jam, California Games, Electro Cop, Paperboy, and Warbirds. Now, where have you heard those names before? Nowhere. Well, that was the problem with the Lynx. Another downfall besides its huge battery consumption. Gameboy, however, it had some good, well-known titles back in it. Tetris, back in the game. Baseball game, that's not well-known, but it's baseball, straightforward. Pac-Man. Lynx did not have a game Pac-Man. Had Miss Pac-Man, but not Pac-Man. And of course, now this is going to be cheating. Going to be cheating, but Pokemon. Yes, that's right, I win. But of course, Pokemon was not out during the time of the Lynx, but we'll just put that there. So, let's boot these two things up. Actually, let's play lesser games. Let's play lesser games, like baseball. Let's play baseball. Why not baseball? That's the launch title. So, this is what Atari saw when they looked at this. Wow, that's not impressive. Now this, let's play Pinball Jam. This is a fun game, actually really addictive. It's kind of crazy. I thought I'd hate it, but I'm like, whoa, this is strangely addictive. And cartridges also are a little weird. Like, I think instead of going in like that, where you can see the cartridge label, like on the Game Boy, they slid in like that. It's really weird, but oh well. And also, it does not have a little tab to keep you from pulling it out during the game. Game Boy does. It's pretty cool. Well, feature. Okay. You got 2 tables, some staff credits. Then over here, you got baseball. Now, it might not seem like a fair comparison, but I don't have a pinball game for the Game Boy, so let's do USA mode. So we're just showing off Game Boy real quick. This is actually a game I can play with one hand. Okay, it's gonna get annoying real fast. I'm terribly sorry. So let's listen to some baseball. Whee! I think that's a foul ball. Where's she going? Where's she going? Where's she going? Homer. Out. Oh. So yeah, baseball. Now over here. Oh, it's big and it's shiny. And look. Crushes the Game Boy. Or is that true? Or does the Game Boy come out on top? Get a home run. That's not a home run, but that's close enough. That's a foul ball. Never mind. It's not a home run. That's a foul ball. So this is a pinball game. Look at that. It talks. It's kind of cool. Use that to hit. And then... This is the only game I can play left-handed. I'm just going to think about it. Yeah, I mean that doesn't look too bad. Yeah, I mean I can't play this with one hand. Pinball is a two-handed game. Actually, most of those games are two-handed. But, I mean, not bad. Now, this is going to seem really unfair, but I'm going to show you Warbirds real quick, and just to show you what the potential of the Lynx was and what it eventually failed to become. Amount to anything. Okay, I'm just going to hit A and look at this. Look at this. It's a dogfight, World War I sort of game. It's actually really fun. Doesn't have the best music on there now, does it? But, I mean, look at this. That was pretty cool, I mean, compared to this. What happened? What went wrong with the Lynx? If you look back there, that's what went wrong. The library of games. Everyone sort of knew what Tetris was. Well, most people by the end of 1989 did. You don't know what Electro Cop is. Pac-Man. It's pretty popular. It might not seem like a big deal, but Pac-Man's popular. There's a Pac-Man Land game on the Lynx, but, I mean, it's not the original Pac-Man. Pac-Man sells. Even on the Atari 2600. And, of course, a few years into the future, when the Lynx was long and dead and discontinued, Pokemon. Pokemon. Every child knew of this. That is what went wrong with the Lynx. The library of games. And, of course, this down here, but that's not really a big deal, unlike the gas-guzzling Game Gear. But, yeah, so... The Lynx could have put up a good fight with the Game Boy, however, hits such as Tetris here helped defend off opposers like California Games. So yes, the Lynx and Game Boy rivalry, while not as well known as the Sega versus Nintendo Game Boy rivalry, one of the biggest handheld rivalries since, well, really ever. I mean, some might argue the Sony PSP versus the DS one is a bit bigger, but blah. I did not grow up in the 90s personally. I've grown up during the DS versus PSP wars, and I side with Nintendo now. I side with Nintendo back then, even though this thing has 8-bit graphics and all that. So, while this one is not as well known as the Game Gear, it was still it was a decent competitor, I mean. But considering the Game Boy sold about 120 million units, this sold 5 million units. Wow. That's a lot of difference. And unfortunately, Atari just decided to go with the Jaguar instead of the Lynx. But we're thinking this had a chance. Instead, they killed it prematurely. Even though it's about 6 years old and it's already dead. But anyway, well, Lynx is very cool. Even though there's a lot of well-known games. Older gamers might have heard of some of these arcade titles. I'm pretty sure Paperboy was an arcade game. Except what I read on reviews. So, yes, if you find a Lynx for cheap, pick one up. And see the great rivalry that never was between the Game Boy and the Lynx. Alright.